would be a little bit less. All right, let's roll into our buyer presentation. Okay, so as I said, I've been licensed since '06. I've done a bunch of stuff, always been here in San Diego. I have a lot of different things that I've gone through. I've worked with several different brokers that have all been brokers of the year, Travis being one of them. I've worked at, if you guys know San Diego, Chris Heller, very top KW agent for a long time, as well as John Reeves. I was at both of those offices for a long time. This idea of this buyer presentation comes from my time with John Reeves, who was a meticulous, he's a military background guy, so he did everything in protocols and specific orders, and you didn't deviate from the system. We always did a buyer meeting. If the client didn't sign a buyer broker agreement at the end of that meeting, we didn't work with them. Didn't matter. They didn't sign it. That meant they weren't our client, and we moved on to the next person. That is a very hard thing to accept, because even in those meetings, there's a lot of times where I was sitting there going, man, these guys are great. We're getting along good. But as soon as you kind of start to ask them to sign a document, it would get weird, which means ultimately maybe I didn't do a good enough job. Maybe they were scared. Signing contracts is tricky, you know, so you've got to decide where you want that in your business. Now, part of the buyer broker agreement and meeting that we had did come with some benefits of being our client. So whenever there's benefits added in, like a rebate, like a buyer rebate, or a guarantee of any sort, at that point, you're giving them something up front. So asking them to sign a commitment makes sense, but it is a hard thing to decide of, you know, how you're going to run your business. And you've really got to stick to one or the other. You could not do them and sometimes do them, and that's okay. But if you're going to use a buyer broker agreement, it's got to be 100%, or you will be frustrated all the time and worried I didn't get it. How often have you used a buyer broker agreement, Travis?
Not typically. So
Not typically.
Most of my business these days is friends and family. And prior to that, I didn't really use them much, but I am seeing them come around a lot more now.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that they are going to become more of our business in the upcoming years, with just some of the lawsuits going on and some of the direction of the NMLSs and stuff like that. We might be negotiating our own buyer's commission, you know, in the very near future. So I think that they are going to come into play more heavily. So I think this is a good presentation to kind of start getting on that track.
Yeah. So, and that's part of this. So buyer's biggest concern is by far, this question comes in many different forms, but this is the number one thing that they have. Whenever they meet you, they have something that is just amazingly important to them. And usually is now the right time to buy. Now, part of this whole idea is to, one, inform your client about information that they may or may not know. Two, show your expertise or ability to relay information. And three, build rapport with them. You want to show them by giving them this information and spending, say, 30 minutes with them. It's probably a good amount of time. In their mind, you've done work for them already. You've educated them, you've helped them. Even if you don't do business with them, they would still go away from that having more information and having a benefit to based off of that meeting. And that's where this comes from, is, we would not set leads to show properties. We would not set leads to set listing appointments. We would set buyer meeting appointments. And that was all we wanted to do, because our goal was to do this presentation, show how we're different, and get that buyer broker agreement signed, even if we went shopping the next day. But this was step one, is this meeting, because building the rapport is by far a huge benefit to both sides. For on just your side as a realtor, if you're meeting clients at properties, by having this meeting first, even if you don't use a buyer broker agreement and you've spent time with them, you're going to sit in front of that house waiting for them to show up 1,000 times more confident that they're actually going to show up, like they said, because you've had this meeting, because you've interacted with them. You'll have a good feeling or not, and you'll know how to proceed every step of the way from here. So when this comes up, is now the right time to buy? The simple answer that I give for this question is yes, it's always the best time to buy, especially in a situation of when a client that you're about to talk to, a buyer, is paying rent. As long as you can take them from paying rent into a property that works for them right now, that they can afford, now is the right time to do that, because they're going to stop wasting money on rent. They might not be in their dream house. Most people aren't on their first one, but they're going to start building equity, and they're going to start living their own life, doing things for them while paying a payment. Right now, it's probably going to be more than their rent, but there is a tax break, and it is their own money paying into their own little savings account. So, I talk about now being the right time to buy, and, to avoid wasting money on rent, which is 100% gone every month. And if someone's paying $3,500, you literally say, look, times 12, that's $40,000 almost a year that you're going to waste if you wait. Now, if you buy now, you're going to start building equity. And in this area, which I would know the area for San Diego, it's, historically it's 3%. San Diego's probably more like 5 to 7. Could be in the last 2 or 3 years, it's up around double digits. But you say, look, do you want to waste $40,000 a month on rent? Or would you like to benefit by building equity, paying a similar mortgage amount as your rent, owning your own property, and building equity that could be 3 or 4 or 5% of your purchase price? If we're looking at a $600,000 property, that's $30,000 a year in equity just by living there, versus handing $40,000 to your landlord in the same amount of time. And you're going to live your own life doing what you want in your own property. So I really do hit on that. I'll go a little bit deeper into it. A few things. You've got to decide what important things you want to share. And then as the realtor, this is when you might talk about how you might want to, shop for homes, how you would place offers, how you figure out if an offer is a fair price. This is also a point where you might talk about or introduce the idea of, we'll explain how we negotiate, if when we get to the point of finding you a property, because although now is the right time to buy, there's a lot of challenges. All right. The next thing that they almost always ask, especially me, because right now I'm focused on rates and loans and mortgages. So this is generally a part of the topic, but you as a realtor, I would expect that they're going to ask you that too. And even if they've spoken with me first or some other lender, they're going to ask you because they're going to hope you give them a better answer. And they're going to go, whoever they talk to that says the lowest amount, that's the one they're going to kind of focus on for the time being. But for me, I go into rates, and here's exactly what I tell them. And this is what you should be telling people too, because it's honest and it doesn't cause you to be, let's say, out of line of not being the mortgage expert. But home prices are going to continue to go up. We can show them, you can grab any data you want over the last 3, 5, 10 years, and you can show them a graph of home prices in their area that they're looking there. It's always going to be climbing, even if there's dips. But ultimately, you're going to say, look, home prices are going to go up. We have no inventory. We have nowhere to build here in California. And, new construction can't keep up with demand of buyers right now, which is going to keep prices going up at a higher rate than the traditional 3%. So that's one thing. At the same time, you can show them a graph, and you can Google this and find it anywhere. You could ask me for it, I'll send it to you. But if you grab a 10-year period showing how home prices are climbing, what you can find is a graph of interest rates that are like this. They're just all over the place throughout the period of time. And like right now, rates are always going up and down. And even if home prices are going up, you'll still see rates doing this. So this is when I explain to them, you, as well as everyone else that's placing offers right now, is got two concerns on their mind. One, getting the best price for the house that they want. And two, figuring out how to get the lowest rate possible. And what that entails is a long-term process. You want to get the house that you want, and over time, you want to set yourself up to be able to snag a lower rate as soon as it becomes available. And you don't want, and the reason that you want to present it that way, because let's say, for instance, rates don't drop and they wait a year and rates don't drop. And then they're going, oh, well, it's been a year, maybe rates will drop now. And 2 years later, they don't drop. So you want to own the property and start owning it and building equity as soon as possible, going back to the last question of, is now the right time to buy? And then your next project or goal as a homeowner is to work on staying just informed enough to know when to do a refi, so you can start to lower your price point. I always, when I'm talking about this, I always talk about my own story of me and my wife, where my wife has been in this house. It was her house when I met her. She's been here 20 years. The house has been upside down, and we've lowered our interest rate by over, it was, I think when I met her, it was in the 5s. We got it into the 4s, then we got it into the low 3s. And then during COVID, we snagged a super low 2.25. But that took, essentially 20 years. And right now, although the house has been upside down at a certain time in history, right now it's worth a little more than double what she paid for it. Now, that's my personal story. They're going to realize the reason I share that for two reasons. One, it's very accurate. I can talk about it easily. And it lets them know, oh, he's in this with us. He's living what he's suggesting. So it becomes, it adds to your own value. It adds to trust between the two of you. And now you kind of have something in common. You're doing the same thing that they want to start doing. And now they're going to get your help, who's already been there, to start their journey. So when rates drop, when will rates drop is a great question. As a realtor, you can share all the same stuff I have, because I haven't gone into any tools to explain that to you. But, you can explain those because you're just going to use graphs and some information that from trusted sources that you like. All right. So again, nothing. All right. Then after we figure out what rates are on, everyone wants to know, how much can I afford? And that's just weird. There's no way to do it. Now, in our buyer presentation, we had a formula, and that worked pretty well. I can't remember it. I got to find that old document. But again, this is a great time where you're gonna, You can use some of the tools that I use free. I think my use of mint.com, which I go over all the time. If you have questions about mint.com, you can put it in the chats or reach out to me whenever, and we can show it to you. But you could use mint.com and go right into it and do a scenario of their, the information that they share with you about their income, their potential credit score, all those things. It all works out right there, and it'll give you a estimated price of what they can afford in a matter of moments. And it's probably 95% accurate, but the real thing is, this is also an opportunity. When they ask this is your opportunity to start to collect information about your new client and ensure that you're spending your time right. Now is great. Let's talk about your income. What do you do? Do both of you, you and your wife work? You and your husband work? Do you guys, how long have you been there? You want to, because when they say, oh, I just started a new job, that's a red flag of, okay, this might be a buyer that isn't able to buy for another year because they don't have a job history or potential problem. But you're starting to take notes. Okay, well, here's their income. Oh, great. I've got 2 jobs. Our taxes showed us making $150,000. Now, knowing your market and stuff, and probably the idea of where they want to live, hopefully you'll have an idea of how much house that can afford. Can they buy in the area that they want? If not, now you're starting to prepare yourself. Okay, you know what? These guys have good income. They're interested in this house, but I don't think they can afford it. I need to introduce some other options as I go. That way you're sort of preparing them for not to give up because they can't get what they want, but to start to shift and compromise and get into a house that will benefit them, even if it's not perfect. The other thing that you'll find out, do you have down payment money? Do you have money to do any inspections on your house? Is that important? So you start to, when they want to know how much they can afford, this is your opportunity to start to ask them questions and find out about their financial situation. And it allows, while you're answering this, you're going to also know how qualified these buyers are, so you know how to spend your time. And, the next thing that they want to know is, how much will my payment be? And that's when you're going to want to introduce the idea of a mortgage lender being pre-approved. And now you're going to get the opportunity to offer a referral and explain, I work with so-and-so. We've done a lot of deals together. He's great. She's great. I think she'll work perfect with you. After this meeting, I will connect you with him and have them call you. But they're going to want to know now, if you have used like a mortgage calculator, a mint.com website, something like that gives you the information, you guys will kind of know what this might be. And that mint.com website, again, it's pretty accurate. It's probably 95% accurate. And it's so easy to use. But they want to know how much that's going to be. And, for me as the lender, this is when I start to introduce, well, there's a couple things involved. So we're going to base it, your payment's going to be based off of your actual loan amount, your down payment, the rate, and then the property taxes and insurance for the specific property that you go with. And the property taxes and the home insurance, those are relative to the property. So we can never really give them the exact amount of their payment in a meeting like this. We need more information. So as you're going through that, you're going to give here's the thing. And what happens in this, when a question like this comes up, now, without being a mortgage expert, you still get to explain this to them. Well, what your payment is going to be based on is going to be, the loan amount, the purchase, it's going to be purchase price, your down payment, which is going to create your loan amount, times your rate, and basically purchase price minus down payment times your rate. And then you're going to add, and then you're going to talk about property tax for the area and homeowners insurance, because you want to introduce those things so they know what to expect. And you'll, again, here's another opportunity to sort of reiterate your partnership with a mortgage professional, trying to get that. If you can get them to your mortgage professional, especially after this meeting, and you and your mortgage professional work fairly close together, you guys will be able to talk to this same client back and forth, just significantly tightening up that bond between client and yourself and your lender. But that's going to be as simple as possible. You're going to keep this stuff as basic as you can, but with the idea of keep them moving forward with the idea of them being able to buy a house, because you want to get to that point. Now, in the previous question, you might have realized real quick that from what they said, they might not be able to buy what they want. And here's the thing that I think is super important is if you get someone, if you're marketing and bringing in people that are, first-time home buyers, and they're at the very bottom of the pole or at the spectrum, and they have a snag with their finances, they might be removed from the game immediately. But if you're targeting people that are in the, potentially want to buy 800, 900, 700,000, even if you are talking with them in this meeting and something comes up that you're like, oh no, that could be a problem, that might stop them from buying at 800 or 900,000. But once you shoot them over to a lender who also wants to get a loan closed and get them into a house, they might be able to figure out that, wow, this guy can actually buy it 600 grand, even though he has this situation. So you don't want to disqualify them in these meetings. You want to collect information and share expertise back and forth. These are your opportunities to ask questions and learn a little bit about them, as well as your sharing your bits of information. But you're going to explain to them, it's going to be ultimately, we're going to find you a house. It's going to be that purchase price minus your down payment times that interest rate at the time. And then we're going to figure out taxes and insurance and go from there. So it becomes pretty simple. Go.
So is this a time at this stage right here where you want to potentially tamper expectations, or are you going to wait until after the meeting with the lender to do that when they come in saying, I want an $800,000 or $900,000 house, but you're using your mint.com and everything, and maybe you see that red flag of there might be an income issue here. Are you waiting until after the lender to tamper expectations? Because that's going to happen a lot. I mean, everybody wants this. They want the Audi, but they end up with the new Kia, but they still get a new car.
Right.
But
No, I think it's so. I think if you're running your business with a meeting like this, your goal is to get to the end of the meeting and get a new client. Now, if they end up not being able to perform after they go through their financial situation, and let's say you're like, oh, well, I knew that was going to happen. If you sort of blow this meeting, you've potentially lost that client. But let's say that they talk to the lender and I realize, oh, once they do X, Y, and Z, they can buy in 6 months. So you've done this, you've been thorough, you've been positive, you've worked through it, and now you have a potential client in 6 months. Additionally, as the buyer's agent in this scenario, to answer your question, this is a great opportunity for you to set not expectations as much as boundaries. That's a lender question. I want you to work with my lender on that, because he's the expert. I'm not. I'm sharing overall ideas of what this is going to entail, but he's going to drill down into the nuts and bolts of it and make sure that you're doing exactly right. A great thing about the mint.com app, if that's a tool that you end up using, is if you, the one question that I ask is, do you have a car payment? And a car payment is interesting because it's fixed like a mortgage payment and it's never adjustable. If you say, do we have a credit card? Well, credit card could change. It could be $40 this month, and then they spend, they go out and buy a new entertainment center or couches for their house or whatever. And all of a sudden that payment jumps from $41 to $241, where a car payment, if it's $350, it's always $350. It's never going to change. So, and in that mint.com, you'll quickly see how much debt changes their ability to buy, but the car payment is a good one. And 99.9% of people that are buying houses also own a car. So and most people have a car payment. It's highly unlikely to see, zero debt, no car payments, but it happens. I have a client right now that's in that situation. Low income buyers that don't have a car payment, it now is a much more important time to buy, if you can think about that, because they have $300-400 to put towards a mortgage that they wouldn't be allowed to if they bought a car. So that's always a great question to talk about, and it might tell if they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna need a new car first. Great. Totally understand that, because you got to work, you got to go to the store, all that stuff. But it might, it's going to be easier to buy a house and then finance a car versus buying a car that stops you from being able to finance a house. So that's a car situation is a very interesting thing to note. And now and when you, even as a realtor, you can explain that just like I did, the difference of the strength of the two. And if you're using that tool, you can see it right there on the screen. It'll change a $350 car payment, if that's what you said, will change their purchase power on that website by $40,000. Easy. And then all
More
of a
than
sudden,
likely, the car payment is the one thing they're not going to be able to pay off
right,
if they need to decrease their
right,
debt to income ratio.
yeah,
A lot of times they can pay off a little credit card or something like that, but a car payment, like that's probably going to be the constant
right.
in their DTI, is
Let me,
something that they're not going to be able
Travis,
to pay off.
can you sing a song or something? This will be the intermission. You can sing a song. I got to use the restroom real quick. I'll be right back.
All right. So I think this is also a good time to bring up any questions and objections that you're having right now in the marketplace, because I'm hearing a lot of objections from buyers. I want to wait, things like that. And to Andrew's point a little earlier about, the interest rates being high, the appreciation is still happening in the marketplace. And so it's better to get into a home earlier. And this is, I'm speaking, preaching to the choir right here. This is something that I, talk to clients about. Is it a good time to buy? Yes, because as it keeps appreciating, if you're waiting for that interest rate to drop, there's a lot of other people doing the same thing. And when they do drop, there's going to be another flood come in, just like, 2020, 2021, we had an immense amount of buyers in here, trying to get into the marketplace. And that really pushed out a lot of the first time buyers because they couldn't compete with cash offers, high down payments, appraisal gaps, things like that. So if they're already in that position, they've already got their home in, then they could just take advantage of the drop in interest rate with that refi. That's their time to refi and lower their payment. So that is something that I do talk to buyers about with that objection, because if you pull up those graphs, you'll see as the appreciation keeps going up, the rates are just going like this the whole time, but the appreciation overall long term has gone up. I mean, we had the foreclosure crisis, and that was probably about the worst time. But even now, I mean, we're well past that in appreciation. So
yeah, now is the right time to buy. Opens up a lot of opportunities, and even if you can bring these questions up yourself. As here, this is what I want to talk about. Like, you don't have to ask them this. These are things that they're thinking about, but You're just going to kind of share with them what your ideas are. On that time to buy, someone's going to say, oh, we're going to try and save up for a better rate, for a better down payment. Well, that's great. That will definitely help and lower their payment, but it doesn't help them get a better interest rate. Okay. So it doesn't change that. So interest rates are interest rates. At the same time, ask them, go, great. How much do you think you can save in the next year to go towards your down payment? Do you think it'll be 20, 30, $80,000? I would use big numbers, because all of a sudden they're going to go, I can't save $80,000. Go, okay, great. Could you save half of that? 40, maybe. Okay. So now you've created doubt and made them think, and all of a sudden the idea of saving for a down payment is like, oh, it'll be better for me. But now you've put it in, you've sort of put them on the spot. Well, I know I can't save $80,000. Maybe I could save half. Okay, great. So you save half, and let's just, because I can't control anything and you can't either, let's assume historically the homes go up 3 to 5% in the next year or two. So now you're explaining you're going to save, instead of buying now, you're going to save for a year, and then we're going to meet again and talk about buying. You're going to hopefully save $40,000, and we're looking at houses that are potentially $800,000 at 3 to 5%. That means that house is now $840,000, and you've had to pay rent for the whole year. And we figured out that your $3,500 a month in rent, you've spent $38,000. So you're actually, instead of saving $40,000 for your new house, that's $40,000 more expensive, you're actually in the hole $40,000, because you've wasted it on rent. The house went up, and although you saved that money, you didn't keep up with everything. So again, you're pointing out it makes sense, but it doesn't. And in the situation we're at right now, if you can save that $40,000, do it anyways, because what the goal is going to be is to get you a house that you like and can afford. And when you do a refi in the next 2 years, you take that $40,000 that you've saved and you put it into the refi and get an extremely lower rate based on the loan amount being lower, as well as your interest rate being lower. So it's a great conversation, and it makes sense, but someone that can save enough money to beat the market I'm going to assume they're already able to do what they want, because they've already been able to save that money because of their lifestyle. Deciding after a meeting like this that, okay, now I'll start, those people will never do it, because life is just, it's a daily, there's a challenge that pops up in our life all the time, So, but yeah, I think you're right, man. Like, there's a lot of conversations around now is the right time to buy. And in this meeting, you're showing expertise, you're helping them understand how you process stuff, and you're showing them how you deliver information, which is all stuff that they're going to want. They're either going to like, enjoy, or, potentially dislike, even if it's the numbers that you share with them, but they're going to understand that you're genuine and you're honest. And most likely anybody else that they might be marketing to them hasn't had this opportunity. They're not going to go to 5 of these. For a listing, a seller might have 3, 4, 5 people come to their house and do it. A buyer doesn't do that. They don't sit through this many. So if you get to this point, this is a client for you to lose at this point. But a meeting like this is going to be a huge benefit for you to build rapport, them to trust you, which is going to make every difficult challenge throughout the process that much easier for you to work with them on and create a solution that they trust and move forward with. Now, the biggest thing about this whole thing for you as a realtor is to build rapport and share with them your expertise in a controlled environment that you get to create yourself by building some version of this. And this is what I'm sharing today in these few questions. This is bare bones. This is to give you guys an idea of how to put your own buyer presentation together. You don't want to copy mine. It might give you a good idea, but you want to build your own and figure out what's important to you, because I don't know what clients you have, where your expertise is, or where you need help. I don't know how to build that for you. You want to do that yourself. But the idea of this meeting and this presentation is to get those kind of that thought process for you moving to build this. And I like the Redfin company. They train their agents to do versions of this at the first meeting, which is I don't know anything about this client. I'm going to show them a house for free, waste my time, and I'm going to have some version of this, a elevator pitch of some sort while we're walking through this first house when I met them for the first time, to hopefully get them to the next house, get them into a meeting like this where I can be more thorough, or get them to sign a buyer agency agreement if that's how you run your business. But, that's how they're doing this type of thing, so, and Redfin's nationwide and they're a huge multi-billion-dollar company. They're valued at a lot of money. That system works, so consider that when you're in it, of how this type of process, it doesn't have to be over Zoom in an office, but it has to be put together in a way that makes sense, and as you start to work on this, you'll realize at a showing when some of these questions come up of how you can go back into this, and you'll, all of a sudden it'll just become more fluid for you to realize, okay, they just asked about, is a good time to buy this house? Is it this? Boom. Now you're not answering that question trying to be nice. You're answering that question to figure out if these are people that you want to work with. And then at the same time, you're saying, okay, here's an opportunity for me to show my value, my expertise, and to create some rapport so they trust me, wanting to do more business with me and not go to the next appointment with the next agent. So moving on to our next bit of information that I like to share. Again, this is a realtor can share this stuff as much as a lender. As a lender, I go into a little bit more detail, but as a realtor, what other costs are involved? We've already kind of talked about down payment in the thing. Most likely, you've probably mentioned closing costs. Inspections are another thing to set up because you want to prepare them, as well as there's a surprise fee that most loan officers don't want to talk about and most realtors don't want to talk about. But you've talked about down payment. Yeah, you've probably figured out that they have one. They're either at as low as 3.5% with an FHA loan. They're putting 20% down. Maybe they're military and they get to use a VA loan with 0 down payment. No matter what type of loan they are, there are closing costs. Now, in today's market, I believe that having some sort of a rebate as well as guarantees or an incredible offer, let's call it that is tied to some sort of financial benefit. And the way that you present that, you can say, I rebate my commission, which sounds real kind of cheesy. It's like, oh, I'll give up some of my money to keep you as a client. You can say, we do a rebate based on these 3 things. Now there's a criteria that you create a rebate as a certain amount. And if they do A, B, and C, one of those things might be signing a buyer broker agreement. Now you've got, it's a quid pro quo where you're getting something and you're giving something. You could also do a guarantee at this point, when you're talking about things like that. But you're also going to talk to them about inspections. They're going to need to pay $600-700 for an inspection, for a general inspection. If they go into something else, like maybe the inspection shows that there's a problem with electricity or roofing, you get to explain, hey, we're gonna set up these inspections. The more that you want to investigate on a property, the more it might cost you. We have some relationships with a home inspector, termite inspection. We know roofers. Now, again, you're taking the answer to this question to show that you're a professional, you have relationships, you understand what their needs are going to be when you get to escrow after you've had your offer accepted. So again, you're now solving problems just inside this buyer's meeting, building more trust, building more rapport, and explaining to them just by almost listing these different items that you're looking out for them even before you've started. You're putting this stuff together and you're sharing this stuff with them. Closing costs affect everyone. No one likes them. Just like the other things that people hate looking at are like homes with HOAs, with Melrose, with any types of extra taxes and things like that. Sometimes those are good, sometimes they're bad, but they do all cost money, and everybody right now is highly, suspicious about doing any business that doesn't have some sort of a sale, because the whole world is on sale right now because of the problem with inflation and the economy. So this is a huge purchase right now. If you can create even a small rebate that is tied to them doing some sort of work or fitting into a time frame, a certain neighborhood, I would create something that you can that's not necessarily you giving up commission, but even though that's where the money's going to come from, create some sort of an idea, a thing, my March or my 4th of July month-long rebate, whatever you want to call it, but create something that you can turn off real easy, and it's tied to them potentially doing something. If you just say, hey, we do a commission, we give 25% back of our commission. Well, there's no time frame of that. No matter what, if you're talking with this client today or in a year, they realize that you're going to get paid a commission, and they're already calculating that. But if you give them, the idea of you've created a offer that you can turn offer on, you can create limits, you can create time frames, you can create it based on price or area, whatever you want. It's totally legal for you to do that as long as you offer it to everyone. That's the key with any type of offer that you come up, is it's got to be offered to everyone, but you can have requirements, but you offer it to everyone as long as you meet these requirements. Boom, 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 you fit into this. There's no legal issue that stops you from doing that. You want to work with if you work with your lender, you guys can create even better options that way. And you're tying two people together, potentially marketing a more significant offer by using you as a team, as a product, and then there's this surprise fee. So this is one that I like to talk about. Most people don't want to talk about it. A lot of realtors don't even understand it. They don't know about it. They don't care about it. Out of sight, out of mind. And, some people have been bit in the butt by this. This surprise fee could get you a phone call from a very angry client that you thought loved you a year after you guys close on your house. And that surprise fee is supplemental tax bill. This thing is a nightmare, and it sort of just looms out there, and it's sitting there, and it goes along with every California purchase. It's tied to the Prop 13 mortgage rebate, act that we get, where we get a benefit from having a mortgage, the taxes that we can save on our mortgage payments and things like that, the interest. But this tax bill, if the longer gap from sale to sale of the property that this buyer is interested, and the difference of how much the property's gone up in value, the value that you're purchasing at and the time it was last sold are the main calculators of this supplemental tax bill. This is a California tax bill, so it's not money that goes to the seller. It's not money that goes to any of the real estate agents. It doesn't go to the lender. It's a California tax bill, and the buyer cannot escape it. And they cannot buy a house anywhere in California that doesn't have this. Now, you could potentially negotiate some sort of a rebate if you wanted to with this between the seller, because anything's negotiable. But I like to talk about this because it's this thing looming out there. It's ultimately, if this supplemental tax bill is $5,000 and you're buying a house for $600,000, you're truly buying that house for $605,000. Because it's a tax bill, it is. This tax bill comes a year to 18 months after close of escrow, and there's no way to avoid it. Sharing this information in a meeting like this shows that you're looking out for this buyer. You've just told them that all houses include this. No one can remove this anywhere, not a different realtor, not a different lender, nobody, because it's a tax. So there's no reason for them to not work with you because you've shared this. There's actually more reason to work with you because you're looking out for them by explaining to them something that you don't need to. You're not part of the tax, business. You're not doing the numbers. Some realtors think the lenders should do it. Lenders hate talking about this. We don't talk about this, especially before you've been in escrow. Whenever I work with buyers, I talk about this in a meeting like this up front, and I tell them on the very first property that we place an offer on, I'm going to run an estimate for you. And I always do that. And if we don't get that house and we go on to the next one, I don't keep reminding them about this tax. I've done enough to make them aware. Now, if we're on the second or third house and they say, hey, what do you think the supplemental tax bill might be? Then I run it. I run the estimate and I share it with them. But I put it out there. I've made them clear. I've shown them that I'm looking out for them by sharing this information. But after that, it's up to them to want to know. Now, where I always step in and say something is if I somehow realize that this house has been owned by somebody for 20 or 30 years. So if you're buying a new car or a used car, and in the ad it says one owner, everyone gets excited. If you hear this is the original family owned this house for 35 or 40 years, you should immediately consider, even for yourself, running the supplemental tax bill, because it could be $10,000-$15,000 if that house was bought for $87,000 and it sits at the top of Mount Soledad in Palo Alto and somewhere in the Bay Area, and now it's worth 1.2 million. That supplemental tax bill could easily be 15 or 20 grand, which ultimately could change the mindset of your buyer, not to not buy a house, but to potentially not buy that house. And now you stepped in and said, hey, I'm looking out for you. And if they don't buy that house, they're not leaving you. They're going to go find another one, and they're going to feel more confidence about working with you. So I like supplemental tax. One, I think it's an important piece of information to share because it is a surprise, and no realtor wants an angry client a year later. And if, something like this, that's an amount that they don't like or they weren't prepared for, that could kill. Even if, let's say, if you didn't share this and they were offended by it and upset, let's say that lost you the one referral every year. Well, that could be 10 grand a year just by not talking about this and leaving this, hoping that your past client isn't upset when he gets a $3, $4, $10,000 bill. So again, it's an opportunity for you to share your expertise, share information that necessarily could affect them financially, because that's what you're trying to share with them. Is I'm trying to help you get a house, save you as much money as possible, and help you make the best financial decision for your family. All those things are tied together in every part of this presentation, which is ultimately helping you build stronger rapport and trust to have them work with you throughout this tough market, because it could take a long time right now to find a house unless you're highly qualified with a lot of excess cash to just throw at a house and say, I'm going to pay whatever I need to get in a house and stop searching. I don't think we're going to see offers like that, like we did during COVID. I think that we're still seeing offers above list and appraised value, but they're not hundreds of thousands of dollars more. They're $10,000, $15,000 more. They're much more reasonable, but it is still happening. So again, this buyer meeting, this presentation of mine is not super specific. It's more about giving you guys ideas about how to build your own, and in my opinion, how important it is. I'll sometimes the last clients, I have clients right now that I'm working with. They are a referral from a family who I've helped them buy their house and refied them 3 times, as well as he was a client of mine when I was in the sports industry that, in my opinion, I didn't feel that I left that industry in the most positive light with some of my closer friends. And when he came immediately and worked with me, he's one of my first clients when I shifted from when I sold my business and started back into real estate. He was one of the first people. So he's important to me. His buddy had, and this is also probably why I thought of this meeting and sharing it with you. His buddy was working with a family friend that's a realtor, and they'd been looking for months with no luck at all. But more importantly, the lack of information shared between the client and this agent didn't build enough trust with them to stick it out. And they thought, man, they would share information with my buddy Mark, and Mark kept saying, dude, you got to call my guy, he will help you. And I went into a very detailed version of a buyer's meeting like this, tied to the real estate piece as well as the mortgage. And throughout that, it was over an hour long. I use a free Zoom, so we had to log out and back in. But throughout that whole thing, I kept going back to, did you guys do this? Did you guys talk about this? And it was like, no, man, this is super helpful. And this guy makes 250 grand a year. They've got 500 grand in savings. Both him and his wife are extremely smart. There is nothing about what we do that they don't easily understand, but none of it happens to pass by them in their daily life. So everything I'm sharing is information that they were just gobbling up, allowing them to feel more comfortable, understand the process, be able to move forward, understand why they felt they were making the right decision of moving away from their family friend to a more business oriented relationship that's going to get them the same goal of a house. And so, for me, I always feel like I like to show as much of my work as possible. And I do that with my clients. I try and do it with the real estate agents that I work with too, to let them know that I'm doing stuff for them with the leads that they send me, the clients that work together, so they can actually see what I'm doing as well. Because most people don't want to do that. But we do so much stuff as just a decision made, a thought process, some sort of a calculation, maybe a phone call here or there. And if we don't turn around and share that with our buyers, we're losing opportunities like this to show our expertise, build trust, build rapport, and show them that we're looking out for them, even if it's not about getting the deal closed at the moment. So any questions on any of this stuff that we've kind of talked about? Doesn't look like there's too much on there. Looks like over 20 people stayed for my whole rant, which is I'm giving myself a pat on the back for that.
Yeah,
Can't
no,
believe you guys did that.
So I think that this is a good outline to even have in front of you if you're going to have a phone conversation. You know, I get that question a lot. I'm a newer agent. I'm 2-3 years in the business. I'm a year in the business, but I've sold 2 or 3 houses, you know, and they're kind of struggling with some of these objections and stuff. Or how do I convert this person into an actual client? I think these were great bullet points to literally maybe even just print up in front of you, have it on your bulletin board in front of you or something like that. And these are the questions you ask every single time when you're talking to a lead or a prospect or whatever, to get them, you know, to start building that rapport and turn them into an actual client.
Yeah. You know, we do a lot of stuff, especially if we're working, you know, if you guys are working internet leads or digital leads, even like, you know, postcard calling, however you're lead generating, when it's a person that we just don't know, this type of information that I talked about today is how you're able to potentially build some sort of trust and rapport in a short period of time on a 5 or 10 minute phone call. Pick something that you feel is important and share that with them, because it's likely that, let's say, if you added, you know, 5 minutes of, you know, explaining a couple of the same questions or answers that I went over today, like Travis is suggesting, compared to what you did last week or last month with the leads that you talked to that maybe didn't go anywhere. There's a good chance that just sharing a few items to the point that, you know, oh yeah, you definitely want to, you know, everyone understands that we want to work with them to make money, but you can also show, you know, that you also want to do a good job for them, you know, and these are the little bits of information like this is how you do that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I got a couple of requests for the bullet points.
Sure, I can send those out and I'll email the little thing to you and we can put it together. I'll actually switch it to just a simple Word document, so
that'll be easy.
a big thing. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
And then if you guys want to work with me specifically, I don't have to be your direct lender all the time. Happy to do any of your business, be a second person, but I'm happy to help you build this out if you have interest in that. If it helps you guys get more business, sooner or later, some of that business might come my way too.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. Hope everybody has a great Monday, great week, and give us a call if you need anything.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.